In the most recent period, a remarkably familiar surge of widespread speculation has effortlessly traversed the expanse of prominent headlines, permeated the discussions on numerous talk shows, and woven itself through countless social media timelines. All of this intense focus undeniably centers upon Meghan Markle and what a significant number of astute commentators are now characterizing as her very latest, meticulously calculated strategic move. For some discerning observers, this particular development is being artfully framed as a truly bold and assertive step towards achieving greater personal independence and a profound reinvention of her public persona. Yet, for an equally significant faction, it is quietly but demonstrably raising genuinely serious and deeply felt concerns within the most inner royal circles, which are already navigating and coping with a discernible wariness stemming from a series of ongoing and unresolved tensions. This unfolding narrative, it is crucial to understand, transcends being merely about one singular action, a solitary public statement, or an isolated new project. Instead, its true essence lies in the broader, overarching pattern it consistently appears to reinforce, a recurring trajectory that palace insiders, dedicated royal watchers, and the general public alike have been assiduously scrutinizing and debating ever since Meghan Markle and Prince Harry made the momentous decision to step back from their official frontline royal roles. This continuous reinforcement of a distinct pattern adds layers of complexity to an already intricate dynamic, prompting endless analysis and discussion across various platforms. Indeed, this most recent development has unequivocally served to reopen long-standing and deeply embedded questions concerning loyalty, the intricate mechanisms of image control, and the inherently fragile nature of the relationship that exists between the Sussexes and the venerable institution they ultimately chose to leave behind. At the very core of this pervasive discussion lies the compelling idea that Meghan's distinctive personal brand continues its deliberate and steady evolution in a direction that feels increasingly distinct and separate from, and at critical junctures even seemingly at odds with, the time-honored values and deeply ingrained traditions that have been so meticulously upheld by the royal family for centuries. This perceived divergence creates a palpable tension that fuels much of the public and private discourse. Discerning observers across various platforms have been quick to note that every single new venture, every candid interview, or every public appearance undertaken by Meghan Markle is now subjected to an intense level of scrutiny. This examination extends far beyond merely what the event or statement physically is, delving deeply into what it profoundly symbolizes and the underlying messages it conveys. To her critics, these actions often appear as another meticulously planned and carefully timed effort to seize and command the overarching narrative, an endeavor that many believe may further complicate the monarchy's persistent attempts to uphold and maintain its essential sense of dignity, its crucial stance of neutrality, and its vital image of unity. To her ardent supporters, however, these actions are viewed through an entirely different lens, representing nothing more and nothing less than a woman confidently exercising her fundamental right to speak her truth, to create her own endeavors, and to meticulously build a life entirely on her own terms, especially after enduring a period of what she has described as years of intense public pressure and significant personal restriction. The palpable concerns emanating from within palace walls, as conveyed by numerous royal commentators, reportedly stem less from the specific content or particular details of Meghan's individual actions, and significantly more from their profound cumulative impact. Each successive move, irrespective of its individual merit, is perceived as adding yet another intricate layer to an already remarkably complex and delicately balanced situation. The monarchy, as an ancient and enduring institution, thrives unequivocally on an unwavering sense of stability, a high degree of predictability, and the extremely careful and precise management of its public perception. Consequently, anything that introduces an element of uncertainty or unpredictability into this carefully constructed equilibrium is almost invariably met with a quiet but deeply felt alarm, signaling potential disruption to its well-oiled machinery. Meghan's latest strategic step, irrespective of whether it manifests as an ambitious media project, a carefully worded public statement, or a high-profile strategic partnership, reportedly reignites long-standing fears within the institution that private family matters could, once again, regrettably become widespread public talking points. This recurring scenario often forces the palace into an undesirable reactive position, a defensive stance it would, by all accounts, much rather avoid at all costs. What makes this particular moment exceptionally sensitive and fraught with potential complications is the critical element of timing. With the royal family currently navigating its own intricate internal transitions, diligently fulfilling its myriad public responsibilities, and continuously striving in its ongoing efforts to modernize itself while simultaneously preserving centuries of cherished tradition, the very last thing it genuinely needs is the added burden and unwelcome distraction of yet another widely reported media storm. Insiders within the royal establishment are said to harbor deep worries that even the most indirect references or subtly conveyed messages can, with astonishing speed, escalate and spiral into global headlines. This rapid amplification often has the unfortunate effect of overshadowing the monarchy's official engagements and its extensive charitable work, thereby diverting attention from its core mission. From the distinct palace perspective, the underlying concern is not about any desire to silence Meghan Markle or curtail her personal freedoms. Rather, it is profoundly about the far-reaching ripple effects and potential systemic repercussions that her high-profile independence and individual expression can have on an institution fundamentally built upon a collective identity and a unified front, rather than prioritizing individual expression or personal brand building. Furthermore, there remains the persistent and deeply significant issue of trust, a pervasive theme that has quietly but steadily lingered in the background ever since the couple's initial departure from their royal duties. While both Meghan and Prince Harry have spoken openly and at length about feeling profoundly unsupported and fundamentally misunderstood during their tenure as working royals, the palace, by contrast, reportedly feels a profound sense of having been blindsided by a series of repeated revelations and what it perceives as subtle but significant slights. Each new initiative undertaken by the Sussexes is consequently viewed through this deeply cautious and often skeptical lens, prompting staff and senior figures within the institution to earnestly question whether it might inadvertently open the door to further disclosures, or potentially lead to new reinterpretations of past events that could challenge the established narrative. Even in instances where nothing overtly controversial or directly accusatory is explicitly stated, the mere omnipresent possibility of such future revelations is, in itself, more than enough to cultivate a pervasive atmosphere of unease and apprehension within the royal household. The collective public reaction, as has consistently been the case, remains profoundly and unequivocally divided. A significant contingent of observers perceives Meghan as a pioneering figure, a true trailblazer who courageously endeavors to challenge a deeply entrenched and historically rigid system that manifestly struggled to adequately accommodate her distinctive identity and her authentic voice. These proponents assert that any reported apprehension emanating from within the palace walls is demonstrably less concerned with any actual or genuine harm, and far more indicative of a profound discomfort with inevitable change and a perceived diminution of established control. Conversely, an equally vocal segment of the population holds an entirely divergent viewpoint, positing that with the acquisition of substantial global influence inherently comes a commensurate degree of public responsibility. They further suggest that the ongoing practice of selectively referencing royal connections while simultaneously engaging in public criticism of the very institution creates an inherently unfair and unsustainable imbalance. This fundamental clash of divergent perspectives vigorously fuels extensive online debates and fervent discussions, thereby ensuring that each and every new action or development becomes disproportionately magnified and amplified far beyond its initial, intended scope or significance. Astute media analysts frequently underscore the undeniable fact that Meghan's extensive professional background within the realm of entertainment bestows upon her a truly unique and considerable advantage when it comes to skillfully navigating the intricate landscape of intense public attention. Her innate understanding of compelling storytelling, sophisticated personal branding, and effective audience engagement is a proficiency that very few, if any, members of the royal family have ever truly possessed or mastered. Viewed from a strictly strategic standpoint, her various actions and public appearances frequently convey an impression of being remarkably deliberate, meticulously planned, and exceptionally well-timed. This consistent impression only serves to reinforce and deepen the existing perception within the venerable palace walls that absolutely nothing she undertakes is merely accidental or coincidental. While this particular perception does not inherently or necessarily imply any malicious intent on her part, it undeniably signifies that the monarchy itself, an ancient and revered institution often characterized by its inherent slowness to adapt to contemporary changes, finds itself perpetually engaged in a challenging game of catch-up within an extraordinarily fast-moving and ever-evolving modern media environment. An additional, significant layer contributing to the overarching concern pertains directly to the potential and far-reaching impact on future relational dynamics between the parties involved. A number of seasoned royal observers and commentators express the conviction that each successive high-profile public move or statement serves to render any prospect of genuine reconciliation increasingly arduous, effectively hardening the established positions of the two distinct sides. Even though there are sporadic and infrequent reports suggesting some measure of behind-the-scenes communication, the conspicuously public nature of the ongoing narratives and unfolding events renders any genuine private healing or rapprochement exceedingly challenging to achieve. There is considerable apprehension within the palace that a sustained public distance between Meghan and the institution could irrevocably reinforce a permanent and entrenched divide, a chasm that possesses the potential to profoundly affect not only the current members of the royal family, but also the crucial long-term public image and perception of the monarchy as a cohesive and unified familial entity. Nevertheless, it is critically important to acknowledge and fully appreciate that a significant portion of what is colloquially labeled as palace concern is predominantly filtered through the conduits of unnamed sources and the interpretive lens of expert commentary, rather than being conveyed via direct, official statements from the royal household itself. The esteemed royal family is, by long-standing tradition, famously tight-lipped and conspicuously reticent, consistently demonstrating a clear preference for maintaining a dignified silence rather than offering immediate clarification or public rebuttal. This resultant informational vacuum inevitably permits widespread speculation to vigorously flourish, leading to a scenario where each and every public action or perceived misstep is interpreted in several distinct and frequently conflicting ways by various observers. Consequently, Meghan Markle's public life invariably exists within this expansive and often challenging space of inherent ambiguity, a unique environment where prevailing public perception can, and often does, hold just as much weight and significance as objective reality itself. As this complex narrative continues its intricate unfolding, one undeniable truth remains unequivocally clear. Meghan Markle persistently stands as an exceptionally powerful and influential figure within the expansive global conversation, possessing an inherent capability to dramatically shift collective attention and to profoundly stir strong, visceral reactions with even the most minuscule alteration in her public trajectory or declared intentions. The ultimate determination of whether this most recent public step genuinely poses a serious, existential challenge to the venerable palace institution, or merely serves to underscore an ongoing, deep-seated discomfort with the emergence of a more modern and fiercely independent royal narrative, is a judgment that depends almost entirely upon the individual's specific perspective and interpretation. What absolutely cannot be denied, however, is that the inherent and enduring tension between the pursuit of personal freedom and the adherence to long-established institutional tradition is, yet again, conspicuously and prominently on full public display, thereby meticulously setting the stage for extensive further discussion, vigorous debate, and an almost inevitable continuation of intense media scrutiny. As the multifaceted conversation surrounding these developments deepens in its complexity, attention quite naturally and instinctively shifts to discerning precisely how this latest occurrence seamlessly integrates into the broader and interconnected pattern of events that have progressively unfolded since Meghan and Harry's momentous departure from their official royal life. To a great many astute observers, this particular development feels significantly less like an isolated or singular decision, and considerably more akin to yet another pivotal chapter within a protracted and long-running narrative centered on themes of control, personal autonomy, and the inherent struggle between deeply rooted old institutions and evolving modern identities. Reportedly, It is precisely this cumulative and compounding effect that triggers the most profound sense of anxiety and apprehension within the traditionally conservative palace circles. Their concern extends beyond merely what is transpiring in the present moment. It encompasses what these events suggest could potentially unfold in the immediate future, and the increasingly formidable challenge of accurately predicting or effectively managing the wide-ranging and often unforeseen consequences. Among the enduring concerns frequently articulated within the discerning circles of royal commentators, a persistent question invariably arises, that of established precedent. The very foundation upon which the monarchy operates is meticulously constructed from a tapestry of time-honored traditions, each one carefully preserved and upheld with unwavering diligence precisely because they serve as the vital threads weaving an unbroken sense of continuity across successive generations. When an individual, who once occupied a significantly prominent position within this intricate and ancient system, chooses to continue leveraging their inherent royal association while simultaneously constructing and promoting an entirely independent public platform, it inevitably casts a profound challenge upon the long-held and deeply ingrained assumptions concerning the expected conduct of former members of the royal family. Meghan's actions, whether consciously intended as such or not, are frequently perceived as actively redefining the very essence of what it signifies to step away from the institution without fully disappearing from the public eye, and this inherent ambiguity profoundly unsettles an institution whose very existence and operational efficacy are predicated upon the clear and unequivocal delineation of roles and responsibilities. Furthermore, a crucial international dimension must be thoughtfully taken into account. Meghan and Harry are no longer merely perceived as simple reminders of internal familial tensions or private disagreements. They have undeniably ascended to the status of global figures, possessing an expansive reach that extends far beyond the geographical confines of the United Kingdom. Consequently, virtually any move, declaration, or public appearance they undertake resonates with considerable impact across multiple continents, exerting a discernible influence upon global public opinion concerning the monarchy itself. Palace aides are reportedly burdened by an underlying apprehension that repeated cycles of controversy, even those of a subtle or seemingly minor nature, could gradually but inexorably erode the meticulously cultivated image of stability, unwavering dedication to service, and dignified impartiality upon which the royal family's standing so heavily depends. This concern is particularly acute within Commonwealth nations, where perceptions of the crown are already in a dynamic state of evolution and critical reevaluation. From Meghan's particular perspective, a robust cohort of her supporters steadfastly argues that these aforementioned concerns are not only entirely misplaced but also fundamentally unfair. They are quick to emphasize that she has consistently articulated a clear desire to channel her energies towards meaningful causes, creative endeavors, and purposeful work, rather than engaging in or perpetuating any form of royal drama or internal conflict. In this particular view, any anxiety emanating from the palace merely reflects an underlying unwillingness to fully accept the notion that an individual can indeed depart from the institutional framework and still manage to thrive independently, achieving success and relevance on their own terms. The undeniable fact that Meghan continues to effortlessly command widespread public attention, they assert, speaks volumes about her inherent influence and enduring relevance, rather than signifying any deliberate or malicious attempt to undermine the established monarchy. Nevertheless, critics, on the other hand, frequently counter this argument by asserting that the distinction between intent and actual impact is not always a congruent one. Even if Meghan's primary goal is genuinely rooted in personal fulfillment, the pursuit of advocacy, or the expression of creativity, the undeniable reality remains that her actions are inevitably, and perhaps inextricably, interpreted through a distinctively royal lens. Every single interview, every public announcement, and every high-profile appearance she makes invariably becomes an integral part of a much larger and ongoing public conversation regarding what might have gone awry and, crucially, who might bear responsibility. This persistent and unavoidable association keeps old wounds festering and complicates the palace's earnest, yet often frustrated, efforts to move forward quietly and to present a unified, stable front. An additional, significant layer of palpable tension lies embedded within the intricate internal dynamics of the royal household itself. Staff members, trusted advisors, and senior members of the royal family are continually compelled to assess and reassess how best to respond or indeed, whether to respond at all, to the ongoing narratives and developments involving the Sussexes. Silence, historically, has often been the strategically chosen approach, perceived as a means to avoid fanning the flames of public discourse. However, this very silence can, at times, be interpreted by the public as a sign of weakness, an admission of guilt, or a lack of engagement. Responding, conversely, carries the inherent risk of inadvertently escalating the situation, potentially drawing even more unwanted attention and scrutiny to the ongoing issues. Meghan's latest reported move, in this delicate balance, is said to have once again reignited this perpetual dilemma, thereby forcing difficult and often uncomfortable discussions to take place behind the tightly closed doors of royal residences. The omnipresent role of the media in amplifying these various concerns cannot possibly be overstated. Sensational headlines, often driven by an insatiable hunger for dramatic narratives, alongside speculative commentary from various outlets and the relentless churn of social media debates, frequently exaggerate the true significance of events. These narratives often frame situations as direct confrontations or deliberate acts of defiance, even when such intentions may be entirely absent. For the palace, this dynamic and often unforgiving media environment is simultaneously familiar territory and a source of profound frustration. Unlike Meghan, who originates from a professional background that inherently values visibility, public engagement, and the strategic control of one's own narrative, the monarchy, by its very nature and historical tradition, is deeply rooted in principles of restraint, dignified silence, and subtle understatement. This fundamental and deeply ingrained difference in approach ensures a continuous and almost unavoidable friction point between the two entities. Finally, the critical element of public trust looms exceptionally large in all of these complex discussions. The royal family relies with considerable weight upon the pervasive perception that it consistently acts in the overarching national interest, placing this above any personal grievances, individual ambitions, or commercial pursuits. When former members appear to deliberately blur the delicate line between personal storytelling, however compelling, and institutional critique, it can inevitably create widespread confusion among the public regarding where responsibility truly lies and what the ultimate motivations might be. Palace insiders may harbor genuine concerns that repeated exposure to such narratives could gradually, yet inexorably, undermine public confidence in the institution, a concern particularly pronounced among younger audiences who are already engaged in a more profound and critical questioning of the very relevance and purpose of monarchy in the contemporary world. A profound reevaluation of the monarchy's role in the 21st century is currently underway, with Meghan Markle at its very heart. Simultaneously, a considerable number of Meghan's most ardent supporters perceive her burgeoning influence not as an isolated phenomenon, but as an integral component of a far broader and more sweeping cultural transformation. They articulate a compelling argument that venerable institutions such as the monarchy are now compelled to adapt and evolve within a global landscape where the tenets of transparency, unwavering accountability, and individual self-expression are increasingly held in paramount regard. From this particular vantage point, any discernible discomfort emanating from the palace is not construed as an indication of impropriety or wrongdoing on Meghan's part, but rather as compelling evidence that the institution itself is grappling with profound challenges in its earnest endeavor to evolve and modernize. Her most recent actions, therefore, transcend the realm of mere personal provocation, instead becoming powerfully symbolic of a far grander societal reckoning that questions long-held conventions. Furthermore, there exists an undeniably potent personal element to this narrative, one that simply cannot be overlooked or dismissed. Beyond the intricate tapestry of inherited titles, rigid protocols, and ancient customs, the very essence of this unfolding saga reveals itself as a deeply human story, centered on the profound complexities of family relationships navigating an environment of extraordinary and relentless public pressure. Each new public development that emerges is invariably layered with a rich subtext of unspoken emotions, lingering unresolved conflicts, and a multitude of competing narratives articulating both hurt and responsibility. It is entirely plausible that the palace's palpable concern may stem as much from an intrinsic desire to safeguard the sanctity of private family bonds from external scrutiny as it does from more pragmatic fears regarding its public image and perception. The inherent challenge lies in meticulously balancing genuine compassion with prudent caution within an environment where every single gesture, every uttered word, is relentlessly scrutinized, minutely dissected, and widely interpreted by a global audience. Adding yet another intricate dimension to the prevailing unease is the pervasive speculation surrounding future interactions between the parties involved. Royal observers and the general public alike ponder whether genuine opportunities for reconciliation might still materialize, or if, tragically, the divergent paths taken have already progressed too far to converge once more. Some seasoned royal watchers firmly believe that the continued pursuit of various public projects by Meghan and Harry inadvertently makes the arduous process of rebuilding trust considerably more difficult, as these endeavors often serve to keep past grievances and perceived slights in active circulation within the public consciousness. Conversely, others passionately contend that increased visibility and unflinching honesty are, in fact, absolutely necessary steps toward achieving true healing and understanding, even if such candor proves profoundly uncomfortable or inconvenient in the immediate short term. Meghan's latest move, therefore, occupies a pivotal position at the very epicenter of this ongoing debate, embodying both the tantalizing possibility of a new beginning and the inherent risk of further deepening existing fissures. Ultimately, the primary catalyst that fuels the enduring palace concern is the insidious presence of uncertainty. The venerable monarchy, with its centuries of experience, possesses a demonstrated capacity to navigate and even withstand criticism, controversy, and even outright scandal, particularly when the precise parameters of such challenges are clearly delineated and understood. What it demonstrably struggles with, however, is the pervasive and unpredictable nature of unforeseen variables, especially when these emanate from an individual who possesses such an astute and nuanced understanding of the formidable power wielded by modern media platforms. Meghan's actions, whether they are ultimately viewed as empowering and transformative or as disruptive and destabilizing, invariably introduce a multitude of variables that simply cannot be easily managed or contained through the application of traditional, time-honored means. This inherent tension ensures that every single development, regardless of how minor or seemingly insignificant it may appear, is meticulously watched, intensely scrutinized, and broadly interpreted across a global stage. As public interest in this unfolding drama continues its inexorable ascent, the overarching narrative progressively shifts its focus from being solely about a single individual to becoming a profound exploration of the collision between the hallowed past and the dynamic present. Meghan Markle, in her unique position, represents a novel kind of royal narrative, one that seamlessly blends the pervasive allure of contemporary celebrity culture with the deep-rooted significance of inherited symbolism. The palace, an institution firmly anchored in over 1,000 years of tradition and precedent, is now faced with the monumental decision of precisely how it will coexist with this undeniable and evolving reality. Whether the prevailing concern ultimately transforms into a period of proactive adaptation or solidifies into steadfast resistance remains to be seen, but what is unequivocally clear is that this rapidly evolving dynamic shows absolutely no sign of receding from the intense glare of the global spotlight anytime soon. Indeed, as this complex and unfolding story continues to progress, it is the profound long-term implications of Meghan's latest move that truly occupy the minds of both seasoned royal observers and astute palace insiders alike. Beyond the ephemeral nature of immediate headlines and the fervor of daily debates, there is a palpable and growing sense that the monarchy is now confronting a truly defining moment in how it chooses to relate to former members of the institution who resolutely refuse to fade quietly into the background of history. Meghan's continued and prominent visibility forces an uncomfortable, yet utterly unavoidable, question upon the ancient institution. Can a deeply entrenched, centuries-old establishment genuinely coexist with a modern figure who operates by an entirely different set of rules and expectations? Or, conversely, will the inherent tension between these two seemingly disparate forces only continue to intensify and proliferate, leading to an even more profound divergence. Among the deepest and most quietly circulating concerns is the critical issue of legacy. The royal family is acutely and profoundly aware that the annals of history will meticulously judge not merely the individual actions of those within its ranks, but rather the collective way this entire era is ultimately remembered and recounted. Every public narrative, every published account involving Meghan and Harry, irrevocably becomes an intrinsic part of that vast historical record. From the distinct perspective of the palace, there is palpable anxiety regarding how future generations will ultimately interpret these tumultuous years, whether they will perceive an institution valiantly struggling to protect its foundational principles and identity, or one that, regrettably, failed to listen attentively and adapt judiciously to the changing tides of modernity. Meghan's ongoing and resolute independence, therefore, keeps that particular chapter perpetually open, preventing it from being neatly closed, definitively concluded, or conveniently reframed to suit a preferred narrative. A profound understanding is increasingly taking root that the time-honored methodologies traditionally employed for crisis management may no longer possess their former efficacy. For many decades, the monarchy steadfastly relied upon a carefully curated system of controlled access to information, strategic and selective silence in the face of public inquiry, and a slow, measured, and highly deliberate approach to communication. This approach, while effective in previous eras, often now feels conspicuously antiquated in an age characterized by the lightning-fast pace of instant reactions and the omnipresence of global digital platforms. Meghan's evident comfort and adeptness with digital media storytelling and her preference for direct engagement with the public serve to illuminate this evolving gap in an even more stark and undeniable manner. Consequently, the concerns emanating from the palace extend beyond merely her individual actions. They fundamentally revolve around what these actions reveal about the institution's inherent vulnerability within a world that is experiencing rapid and unrelenting change. Conversely, those who offer their unwavering support to Meghan contend that this very discomfort, which her presence often elicits, is precisely the reason why her involvement holds such significant importance. They firmly believe that her unconventional approach uncovers deep-seated flaws that have, for an extended period, been meticulously concealed behind layers of rigid protocol and elaborate ceremony. From this particular viewpoint, the concern expressed by the palace is less about the potential for genuine harm to the institution and more overtly about the perceived loss of its previously unchecked authority over the public narrative. Meghan's singular ability to exist meaningfully outside the traditional royal system, while simultaneously influencing crucial conversations about it, directly challenges the long-held notion that the monarchy alone possesses the exclusive right to define its own public image and its core values. On the other hand, a contingent of critics voices apprehension regarding the potential for public fatigue to gradually set in. The relentless and seemingly never-ending cycles of speculation, immediate reaction, and subsequent counterreaction have the capacity to progressively erode sympathy across all involved parties. There exists a tangible risk that audiences might become desensitized to the unfolding events, eventually viewing the entire situation not as a meaningful and profound discussion about necessary reform, evolving identity, or fundamental fairness, but rather as an interminable and unproductive family feud. Insiders within the palace may harbor fears that this ongoing and high-profile drama inadvertently distracts from the monarchy's vital charitable missions and its dedicated public service, thereby reducing complex institutions and the individuals who represent them to mere two-dimensional tabloid caricatures. Another significant facet that lends considerable weight to the palace's mounting concerns is the pronounced generational divide that has emerged. Younger audiences frequently interpret Meghan's actions through a contemporary lens of personal empowerment and authentic self-expression, often celebrating her perceived autonomy. In sharp contrast, older generations may perceive these very same actions as regrettable breaches of long-standing decorum or foundational loyalty to the crown. This distinct split not only mirrors broader societal transformations occurring globally, but also places the monarchy in an extraordinarily difficult and precarious position. How can it effectively remain relevant and appealing to its younger supporters without simultaneously alienating those who deeply cherish and uphold tradition? Meghan's continued prominence and her unique approach to public life only sharpen this existing dilemma, rendering the maintenance of a neutral stance increasingly challenging, if not entirely impossible. The financial dimension, though seldom openly discussed in public discourse, undeniably plays a significant and often unspoken role in the pervasive unease. The delicate and intricate blending of a royal association, however indirect, with various commercial ventures invariably raises a multitude of complex ethical questions that the palace is exceptionally keen to avoid scrutinizing publicly. Even when Meghan meticulously endeavors not to directly reference her royal past in her professional undertakings, the underlying connection remains an unavoidable aspect of public perception. This situation inadvertently creates a nebulous gray area that the monarchy has, for centuries, conscientiously tried to steer clear of, and each new project undertaken brings with it renewed and intensified scrutiny regarding where the boundaries are drawn and, critically, who ultimately holds the power to define them. Emotionally, the profound and enduring toll exacted by this prolonged period of tension and public scrutiny cannot, under any circumstances, be underestimated. Behind the carefully crafted formal statements and the strategic periods of silence lie real individuals, grappling with deep-seated disappointment, pervasive frustration, and unresolved conflict that echoes through their lives. The concern emanating from the palace is therefore not purely strategic or institutional. It is also profoundly and undeniably human. Witnessing deeply personal family matters repeatedly dissected and analyzed on a global stage takes an immense psychological and emotional toll, and Meghan's ongoing visibility in the public eye regrettably ensures that those emotional wounds are rarely afforded the privacy or the necessary time to truly heal away from the relentless glare of public attention. Simultaneously, Meghan's unwavering resilience and her demonstrable determination resonate powerfully with countless individuals who perceive their own personal struggles reflected in her extraordinary journey. The compelling narrative of a woman actively carving out her own distinct identity after experiencing what she felt was constraint by a powerful and traditional institution is particularly potent and captivating, especially in an era that places a supreme value on authenticity, individual agency, and self-determination. This profound resonance is precisely what elevates her to such a potent and influential figure, and it is precisely why the concerns within the palace continue to persist with such intensity. Influence of that considerable magnitude and public appeal is inherently difficult to effectively counter or successfully contain within established institutional frameworks. As the intricate and widely observed narrative continues to unfold, a profound and central question persistently arises concerning the future trajectory of this compelling dynamic. Will it, at some point, eventually achieve a genuine state of equilibrium, a stable and harmonious balance where the forces currently at play find a lasting resolution? A thoughtful segment of observers firmly believes that with the steady and inevitable passage of time, the fervent intensity of public and media interest surrounding these interconnected entities will, in a quite natural progression, gradually diminish. This anticipated abatement of scrutiny and engagement, they postulate, would then facilitate a more detached existence for both parties, enabling them to operate independently and pursue their respective courses without the persistent, often abrasive, friction that currently characterizes their interactions. Conversely, another significant contingent of commentators posits a contrasting perspective, asserting with conviction that so long as the endeavors undertaken by Meghan and the meticulously cultivated public image of the monarchy continue to intersect, however subtly or indirectly these points of contact may manifest, the underlying current of tension and inherent friction will regrettably persist, an unavoidable consequence of their interwoven public personas. While the palace may harbor a deep-seated hope for a greater sense of distance and a return to a more profound quietude, Meghan's chosen path, characterized by her continued public engagement with the world on her own distinctly defined terms, strongly suggests that such a complete disengagement is unlikely to materialize in the foreseeable future. Furthermore, there exists the intriguing and potent possibility that this ongoing saga, far from merely being a source of persistent disagreement, could ultimately serve as a powerful catalyst for truly meaningful and transformative change within established systems. Institutions, by their very nature, often demonstrate a remarkable resistance to internal evolution, preferring to maintain long-standing traditions. However, they frequently undergo significant shifts not because of an inherent desire to change, but rather because they are compelled by external pressures or internal crises to confront uncomfortable, often inconvenient, truths about their own structures and practices. Meghan's journey, undeniably controversial and subject to intense scrutiny as it has been, has undeniably ignited crucial and far-reaching conversations about critically important societal issues, including the complexities of race, the vital importance of mental health awareness, the evolving landscape of gender roles, and the often rigid and unyielding nature of deeply entrenched tradition. From this particular vantage point, the initial concerns emanating from the palace, which have been quite palpable, could eventually give way to a period of genuine introspection, thoughtful reflection, and ultimately, a commitment to necessary reform, even if that transformative process is inherently slow-moving, fraught with challenges, and uneven in its application across various aspects of the institution. Ultimately, the overarching story is no longer confined to being solely about Meghan Markle or the royal family existing in isolated silos, detached from broader societal currents. Instead, it has profoundly evolved into a much larger and more resonant narrative that delves into fundamental themes of power dynamics, the intricate nuances of personal identity, and the universal struggle to define oneself either within the confines of, or bravely outside of, venerable systems that have existed and exerted influence for many centuries. Meghan's latest strategic move is significant not merely because of what it explicitly articulates or directly states, but rather because of the powerful and symbolic representation it embodies within this expanded, more profound context. It fundamentally challenges long-held assumptions, actively provokes essential public debate, and steadfastly refuses to allow the complexities of the past to remain comfortably buried beneath layers of tradition and silence. As the global public continues its unwavering observation, meticulous analysis, and often passionate argumentation surrounding these developments, one thing remains absolutely certain and indisputable. This particular chapter in the unfolding royal narrative is unequivocally far from reaching its conclusion. Palace concerns, stemming from the implications of these developments, will almost certainly persist for as long as Meghan remains a visibly influential figure, demonstrating a clear and unwavering willingness to chart her own independent course in the public sphere. Whether that persistent concern ultimately leads to a deeper and more entrenched division within the royal institution or, conversely, to a visionary reimagining of what the monarchy can truly represent and achieve in the 21st century's modern world, remains an profoundly open and unanswered question. What is abundantly clear, however, is that the dynamic intersection of deeply rooted tradition and transformative change has rarely been as overtly visible or as intensely scrutinized as it is now, and the ultimate outcome of this ongoing tension will undoubtedly play a pivotal role in shaping royal narratives and their public perception for many years to come.